And now I'd like to start proceedings, if I may, by inviting Mr. Chawla to say a few opening remarks. Sir.
Thank you. Mr. Yuri, Afanasiev, delegates, Dr. Mathur, colleagues from TERI, ladies and gentlemen. At the risk of repetition, and I say repetition because I said this last year also, all good things must come to an end. If they didn't come to an end, they would not be good things. So we are now at the end, unfortunately, at the end of 3 days of very stimulating, interesting, and useful discussions. And even in this age of technology and emails and faceless contact, there is really no, at the end of the day, there is no substitute for getting together, being in the same room, on the same table, trying to forge partnerships which are sustainable. Because you can't have sustainable development without sustainable partnerships. And I think the journey in that direction, I'm given to understand, has been useful and productive. Apart from many other things which will flow, 2 concrete takeaways which have happened in the last few days are the agreement or the understanding between TERI and the government of Fiji, which is extremely important for both sides, and also the work on the Energy Transitions Commission. And I'm sure Dr. Mathur, his colleagues, and the others who have participated here will have many more thoughts and ideas. Maybe he'll mention some of those today, which can be built upon as we go ahead. And let me also say, as the Prime Minister in his inaugural speech mentioned yesterday, I do hope that you found the time not just to sit and form partnerships here, but also to get for those of you who've come from outside, to get a chance to see the sights and sounds of Delhi and maybe the quality of the air here. That will give you some further thoughts on how to collaborate on many areas. And wish you a speedy journey from wherever you are and get back home. And we hope to see you around the same time in larger numbers next year. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chawla. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Afanasiev to say a few words.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me perhaps start from congratulating our friends at TERI for an event, in my view, wonderfully pulled off. I think it's been 3 days of top quality experts participating in very well designed panels of a very intense substantive agenda. From what I hear, and I've attended 4 or 5 sessions, but from what I hear from others, and there were many of my UN colleagues that either participated or attended or moderated some of the sessions, that it went impeccably well. So congratulations to both of you, congratulations to the team, congratulations also to the Indian government that I know very much supported what you were trying to do and do that every year. I think one perhaps of the most important messages that not only events like this, but the whole philosophy of sustainable human development and the Sustainable Development Goals bring, and which I never tire to emphasize, is the interconnectedness of this agenda. I think over the last 3 days, you have seen the number and the complexity of the panels that you've all attended And they ranged from water to energy to the circular economy to development issues to policies to private sector innovations and ideas. And this is where the complexity but also the hope of the Sustainable Development Agenda lies. I am frequently struck by how both in government and in business circles, we believe that there's a magic bullet for every problem. And you regularly hear the flair of the month or of the year of somebody coming out and saying, well, renewables will solve all our problems, or electric cars will solve all our problems, or this will solve. And the simple truth of the matter is that no matter how much we're excited by technology and innovation, which for the first time perhaps in human history proves to us that there are solutions to all of our problems, the story here is that not one single one of them will solve all of them. And therein lies the complexity of what governments today need to face and need to do. At the heart of the Sustainable Development Agenda lies the whole government approach. And I think even in the last two panels, as most of you were here in the audience, it became quite evident that not one single ministry or department has the control over water. The political establishment needs to buy into this. Intergovernmental, regional, cross-border negotiations need to be had. 22 ministries get involved in one way or another, either the supply or in the demand and consumption of water. And the same goes for every issue, no matter which one we touch. I remind you that a year ago when the big drought hit India, and 12 states were suffering from that drought, I think it was one of the first times that under the Prime Minister's leadership, a mini cabinet was gotten together and 6 or 7 ministries came together in a weekly situational emergency room discussion to attack the issues of the drought and make sure that the effects are felt not as terribly by all the populations affected. And here's perhaps a couple of words on India, the country where I'm privileged to serve and at this particular moment in history and time. We in the UN firmly believe that India is not only the biggest democracy in the world, not only the biggest country by population size, not only the fastest deploying renewable energy country or anything else. It is also a laboratory in many ways for the development solutions of tomorrow that are being born in India today. And I think the fact that this summit is held every year in Delhi for now, Ajay, how many years? 18, almost 20 years. It is repeatedly held in Delhi, and I wish it another 20 years, or certainly until the end of the 2030 agenda, which hopefully will be successfully delivered. But the fact that this summit happens here is testimony to the fact that India matters. I'm not going to go as far as to say that India should be responsible for the Sustainable Development Agenda, as Jeffrey Sachs kind of started this 3-day discussion in his opening speech. But what I will say is India is in a unique position because it's a unique mix of circumstances that allow it to lead intellectually, pragmatically, practically. Why? Well, because India's level of development is still low middle income. And you've just graduated to a low middle income status last year, according to UN and World Bank methodology. Secondly, it is the biggest democracy in the world, and by the end of the 2030 agenda may have 1.5 billion people on a territory that is comparatively small for that size of the population. Thirdly, it's an increasingly liberal economy, where a lot of the traditional creativity and initiative of the Indian people is being released, and people are allowed to make innovations, allowed to businesses to succeed, allowed to grow as fast as they want. And we are constantly seeing, picking up, and documenting incredible innovations that are low cost, fast deploying, easily scalable, and where India perhaps offers a solution for other countries that may not have the market size that India has, or the democracy that India had, or the financial means that India can access. And I will tell you from my own everyday experience, every week and every month, I get calls from a Ghana, from an Ethiopia, from a Lima, from many other countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, who are saying, excuse me, what is this thing that you guys did in India? Meaning not us UN, you guys, but the Indian guys. What is it that they did that is so interesting? How the hell did they get 1 billion people onto a biometric card? How the hell did they manage to deploy, 20 gigawatts in, or almost 20 gigawatts in solar and almost 30 in wind? How did that happen in 3 years or 5 years or 6 years? What is the secret? And we are, together with friends and colleagues, including with specialists in TERI and others, we are looking together at some of these things and trying to figure out what is the magic formula. What happened here that gives hope and courage to others across the world that we may not be a rich country. We may not have the financial means or the level of living that a California has. But perhaps it is because of those restrictions that we can create, we can innovate, we can deploy, and we can solve one by one of the problems and challenges that we have in our development trajectory as the years go by. Frankly, India does not have a choice. My country, Russia, or Canada, or perhaps the United States, have a choice because they have a huge territory, they have immense water resources, immense extractive potential for raw materials, timber, and God knows what. Unfortunately, India is not graced by that amount of resources, certainly not for the population and the economy it has. But it's interesting to think back and look at history. The countries that made the biggest innovation and quality of life breakthroughs weren't actually the ones that had it all. If you remember Japan, destroyed after Second World War, island state with a big population for that island, for the size of those islands, that doesn't have the materials that most people need for the development of a modern economy. And look at the levels of quality of life and innovation and technology that they have achieved in a relatively short period of time after Second World War. Look at Korea, a relatively small peninsular country. Again, does not have the resources or the financial, or didn't have at that time, the financial means and capabilities, emerged from a dictatorship. And how quickly that happened. So the point that I'm making is we are, in the UN, certainly watching India with a magnifying glass, because not only does India represent 50%, 30 to 60, right? But the average is somewhere between 40 and 50, of the entire SDG agenda, whether you take poverty or energy or water or whatever. But India also has the incredible potential to come up with the answers and the solutions. Because the solutions of the North, and we've had wonderful presentations in these panels from, wonderful innovative experience in Denmark and in Sweden and in France and in Germany and the United States and in Colorado just now, how problems are solved. And we can take inspiration for a lot of those examples and a lot of those intentions and policy frameworks and incentive frameworks and anything else. But a lot of the technology applied in the North is Northern technology, which is, by definition, very expensive. But India is coming up with answers on solutions that are 1/10 of the cost and hence are much more scalable. Let me finish by just a comical note. When I travel to be with my family in Europe and UK or in North America, and I go into a corner store and I see the price of a LED bulb in that corner store in the US, I start laughing hilariously. And usually the saleswoman at the cash register looks at me and says, "What are you laughing about?" I said, "This is about 10 times more expensive than I can buy it in India." So I think what in closing my remarks to you at the end of this wonderful 3-day summit, I think innovate, think, create. Let's take the best the world has to offer, but let's come out, as always, with our own answers here in India that then are applicable, transportable, exportable to the rest of the world, because we only have a limited number of years before some of these changes become irreversible. And I think India is already playing, but should play an even more intellectual leading role in this whole agenda. So thank you all. Thank you to the organizers. It was a privilege to collaborate on this together, and I hope for many years more of collaboration between the UN and TERI and India on all of these matters. And I'm glad all of you were here for these 3 days, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Yuri. Just before I invite Dr. Mathur to say a last few words, I'm just going to cheekily seize the microphone for a moment because this is the last time you'll hear from me. So I just wanted to thank TERI very much for inviting me. This is the 6th year, I think, that I've been to the summit, and I can honestly say, in terms of content and detail, it's one of the best. It's going from strength to strength. So maximum respect, as we say in London, to Dr. Mathur, to Dr. Vancheswaran, wherever she is, and to all the TERI team. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. An honor and a pleasure to be here. I couldn't work with a nicer bunch of people in TERI, so thank you very much and hope to see you again. And now, Dr. Mathur. Thank you, sir.
Martin, thank you. Actually, a WSDS would seem very different if Martin wasn't here. So I think you're as much a part of this as each one of us. And again, on behalf of all of us, thank you very much. As we come to the end of WSDS 2018, I take this opportunity to reiterate TERI's commitment to taking the Sustainable Development Agenda ahead. In the past year, TERI has been involved in a range of activities which have sought to figure out what are the key challenges, where is it that we focus on. We looked at the fact that the vast amount of infrastructure, the vast amount of appliances, the vast amount of just say stuff that India will own in 2030, more than 50% of it has yet to be built. You can imagine that if it is built as it was yesterday, we wouldn't have a tomorrow. What that means is that tomorrow can't be more of yesterday. And that's at the heart of sustainable development. That's at the heart of what TERI does. We focus on enhancing people's lives, better livelihoods, while at the same time ensuring that the resource efficiency increases. The amount of water you use, the amount of energy you use, the amount of fertilizer you use to produce a ton of food keeps on decreasing. And at the same time, the amount of waste that is produced keeps on decreasing, and we reuse the waste. Very much in the way that was discussed in the last session, great example of how we are forced to reuse water if we need to survive. At TERI, we focus on a number of areas: moving to a cleaner future, moving towards landfill-free cities, moving to clean air, to a place where adequate water is available, to a future where the agriculture uses water, fertilizer, etc., so that we are able to have lands which are clean and food which is clean. We commit ourselves to working with all of you on a future that holds a better promise for tomorrow. As we move there, this Sustainable Development Summit and the series of Sustainable Development Summits we have form an integral part of what we do. It is about hearing each one of you share your experiences. It is about enabling partnerships, because each one of us does not have to go through the same experiences again and again in order to reach our sustainable development goals. I can learn from you, I can accelerate my own progress. So if we are each able to accelerate our progress by learning from others, making those partnerships become crucial. And I hope that we develop more and more. The chairman spoke of 2 partnerships which we are extremely proud of. And I look forward to the many other partnerships which have been made here. I look forward to hear about their success and about how they have been able to influence the lives of people around us. I also wanted, as far as the summit is concerned, I do hope you download the app. I hope you have downloaded it. It also has the news bulletins of the first 2 days, and hopefully sometimes tonight we'll have the bulletin of today as well. You would have a range of the short reports, the briefs, the videos, the photos on the app. This app will be online for at least 1 more month. And we also encourage you to use it to reach out to the various people who spoke here. Because one of the things the app does is it allows you to enable those contacts, build those new partnerships. At this summit, we were also extremely delighted to welcome a huge number of young students who have spent the last 3 days with us. These student volunteers are people you would have seen with a WSDS badge on their shoulders. I request them all to come onto the stage, and sir, if they can pose for a photograph with you. And we want to thank, why don't you just move on? And we want to thank each one of them. Their names are on the screen. They are the hope of tomorrow. They are our ambassadors from today. Move on. If you have to make 2 lines. I'll also come to the center. And some of you can actually, if you can bend onto your knees, you can form a 3rd row as well. Come on. Great. Great. Lovely. Collect as you leave. Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good. It's also a pleasure to thank all our partners. Much of this wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the direction provided by the International Steering Committee, and I thank each one of them. One of the steering committee members, Ivo de Boer, is here with us, and through you, Ivo, thanks to the entire steering committee. I also want to thank our partners in government, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, and the Ministry of External Affairs. The Norwegian Embassy, which for many years has been one of our leading partners. The Asian Development Bank, the UN system, including the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, the International Solar Alliance and the Shakti Foundation, Yes Bank, which has been a great partner, Energy Efficiency Services Limited, Sweden Sverige, European Union, Ingersoll Rand, NRDC, the World Bank Group. We also have been extremely lucky to have a set of great partners with whom we have been able to reach out to the world. This includes the All India Association of Industries, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, IFAT India, the Global Compact Network, and in Fiji, PIDF. There's a whole range of other thematic track partners, and I think you will see their names coming. The WSDS subscribers, to each one of them our grateful thanks. We also had a group of young people from the media who were here with us, and a huge number of media representatives who covered this event. You know, after all, this is about sharing. And we look forward to the media as a partner to help take the message to every home, to every office. And finally, to my colleagues within TERI. I want, from the bottom of my heart, to thank each one of you for the extremely hard work, for the very long hours, and the dedication that you put in. To the WSDS team, Annapurna and your colleagues, is the WSDS team here? If you are, rise. If you aren't, then if you are, there they are. There's Annapurna, Anish, Nazia. Thank you very much. Why don't you come up here? Nobody is going to throw stones at you. They'll probably throw flowers at your feet. So these are the guys who made it happen. Come on. Annapurna, come to the center. Oh, come to the center. During these 3 days, we have had a range of discussions in the thematic tracks on the first day, in the plenaries on the subsequent days. There are a good, maybe somewhere between 50 and 60 colleagues who made that happen. To all the thematic track leads and the plenary session leads, my thanks as well. And then, finally, there is the TERI press, who burn the midnight oil and make sure that you get to see the reports in the morning. To Anupama, is Anupama around? To Anupama and her colleagues, many thanks. Oh, they're still working? Oh, you're up there. Okay. Many thanks. The logistics was done by the events team, Sonal, Shonali, etc. There you are. Many, many thanks. And finally, the IT team. We take Wi-Fi for granted, but they are the guys who know how difficult it was to make sure that each corner had Wi-Fi. Walls have this strange habit of making, what are they called? Dark spots. But I don't think you found any. And that's because of thanks to the work that our IT team did. And then the administration colleagues who helped in the registration, again, many thanks. And Martin, may I again thank you for bringing this all together. To each one of you who is here, we are absolutely delighted that you could join us. It is your event. It is your participation. When you speak, when you share, When you talk to colleagues on the sidelines, that is what this event is about. That is what this event makes it successful. Again, I look forward to seeing you next year. We hope that I think we will have it again at around the same time next year. We will again have to look at the schedule of the Parliament to make sure that we can still access the ministers to come here and they are not held up in Parliament. But I presume that it will be around the same days in 2019. So till then, thank you and goodbye.